Hello guys, welcome to a new lesson of Angular. Today we're gonna make a CRUD app with Json-Server. So we have the app module, we have the declarations, inside we have the components, we have home component and user component. Inside imports we imported the modules we needed to use for the application. For example, reactive forms module, it's used to collect all the data from inside the form so we can send it to backend. HTTP client module, we can use it to make HTTP requests. App routing module is for the routing, and inside shared module we imported all the components, the majority of the components from material, Angular material, which I recommend. We imported them and after that we exported them. So we can import this shared module and we will have access to all these modules we imported. And the providers, which we have a user service imported. We have a model. The model defines the entity of the user. We have a user interface, so the user will have an ID of type number. We have a name, which will be a string. It will have a user type. We want to make with admin, super admin, normal user. It will be a string. We can also put optional keys. So for example, selected, and we will need to use a question mark, so this one is optional. The first three are mandatory and the next ones will be optional. It doesn't matter if we use them or not. Selected will be a boolean, and I don't know, let's show some forms that we can update the user. Show update user, optional and a boolean. We have the user component, we have a form, an input, name, and select with a few options, and a button of type submit. We have the servers, the service where we will make the HTTP requests, and the users array, the DB, which we will need to watch with the Json-Server, db.json. Okay, so inside the users component we have we are using reactive form. So we have a user form variable of type form group. When the component initializes, we are calling a function init user form that creates a group of keys, name and user type. So inside the users HTML we will need to put in on form, we need to put the user form. So form group, and put user form, and after that you have, for example, name and user type. We will need to put it on input and the mat select. Those are the only inputs we have. So we'll put form control name on input. This will be name, and on mat select it will be user type, if I'm not mistaken. And now we can collect the data from inside the input and mat select into an object, and we need to make ng submit and a function which will be named create user. So when we press submit button, it will activate this function create user. So let's create the function create user. It will be of type void, which means we are not returning anything from the function. And let's console log the form, this dot user form dot value, and now we can collect the value from the form. New user. So now we have the name and the user type, which we can send to backend. So we need to make the HTTP requests. inside the service. So let's make a function get all, which will return this .htp get, and we will use the user type, which will be an array. And after that we need to put the user, the URL from the database, and /users, because we have localhost 3000, we have /users. This is for all the users. If you want to get only one user, get one by ID, for example. This one will get a parameter, an ID, which will be a number, and we will make a get HTTP get users URL users and the ID from the parameter. Let's make a create user, which will get the user inside from the form, and it will be of type user. We are returning HTTP. This one is post users URL inside users, and we will send the user. Let's update the user of type user, the parameter, this HTTP put the URL users plus ID, user ID, and we will send the user. Make delete, which will take the ID as a parameter. HTTP, we will need to delete user, the URL users, and the ID of the user. And the last one, let's patch. One patch, we will change only one property from the object. It will take an ID and the user object. Return the URL users, the ID of the user, and the user itself. So now we have everything. We have the get. We need to, if you call this, we'll get all the users. One user with the ID. We'll create the user. We'll update the user, delete the user, and update one property from the user. Okay, so now we can import this service in the constructor. User service of type user service. Now we can use the functions we created inside the user service. We can use them in users component. So let's make, for example, the get of the users. Get users of type void, because we don't return anything. This dot user service get all, and we will need to use subscribe, and we will get the response from the server as a parameter, and we need to console log it. And we will use the get users when the component initializes on joining it. So we have the response from the server. Okay, so now we can make a users variable of type user, but an array. It will be an array of users. This one, it's an array of users, and we will assign this dot users equals to response. So now we have all the users, the array of users on this variable. So let's map the users, class users, and we will use the ng4 directive to map the users. Let user of users, we have a user class, and let's use a card, for example. Not card for the name of the user. So here we have user.name. After that we can make user.userType. So let's see how it looks. So we have the user, the first user, normal user, and the type of the user. Okay, so let's style this. We're gonna make users and user. Make display flex direction row. Line items center. Inside the user we have the mat card. Let's put a background color in it. Background color Bollywood. Okay, the cursor pointer. Okay, and now let's style that we can use like this. We can use like this: margin right, and we can style and put some margins. String. Okay. Users, let's say with 60%. Have the users actually. Okay, so now we have the users. Now we can create the user. We will need to use this user service create, and then we will need to look inside the service. The create method takes user as a parameter, and after that it will post the user. Create this user form. Let's put user, this user form add value, and user inside. We send the user in the parameter, and after we will subscribe, and when the user is posted we will need to make get users, so we can get the new one, the one we created. So let's see if it works. New user, it will be an admin. Let's check the network. We created post method, and after that the get method with all the users. Okay, now we can change, for example, the selected value of the user. So we can make an on-click event. It will have change user selected status, and we will send this user inside the parameter. And now we copy the method, we create the method inside users component, user as a parameter, the one we send from HTML, and it's of type user. It won't return anything, so it's type void, the function. And let's console log the user to see if it works. Okay, this one works, so we can mutate the object user.selected equals to not user.selected. I think it's selected from model selected, yes. And now we have the selected true. False true, okay. And now we can use a put. So this dot user service user service dot update and we'll need to send update. We'll need to send the user. And after that we subscribe, we get the response after it edited the user, and we will make get users. Okay, now let's see if we need to make a spawn user.selected. If it's selected, we will show selected. If not, we will show not selected. Okay, not selected, selected, not selected. And it makes the put also. And now if we refresh it, it will be the same. Selected, the first two selected. Now they are selected. The first two selected true. So that's how we make a put. Okay. Now let's style the spawn. Margin right. Let's make a delete button. Let's search for a button in Angular material. Button. You can see examples. Let's take this primary, raised button, primary. Let's copy it here. Delete user. We have delete. And we will make another button which will be the update form. Update user. Okay, let's style it. Okay, now we'll need to make the delete method delete, and it will be the user, type user. We'll make a click event and use delete and the user. And here we'll take the user ID and make this user service delete, and inside we used the ID, user.id. We subscribe to it, and on response we will get users, call get users. So now if we delete one, it deletes the user, and after that it calls get users. So we can create and delete it. Okay, now we will need the component which will have two forms in which we will update the user and patch the user. We'll use patch. So let's use the extension, the Angular schematics, and create a new component, update user, generate a component, update user component. This will automatically be imported inside app module, update user component, and we have the component which we can use, app update user. Users component, user, okay. Now we have the update user, and here we will use the form from inside users, and another form, and we will have two form groups inside the update user. Okay, and now we'll have the update user form as a form group, and the patch user form as a form group. So if you want to import things from Visual Studio, you can press Ctrl and dot, and it will you can import it like this, Ctrl dot. And now we need to make the functions. Init user form of type void, update user form equals to, we need to import the form builder of type form builder. This dot form builder group, it will have the name, and we will need to populate this with the user. So we have the name and the user type, and we need to send from inside the users, we will need to send the actual user inside this component. So we will need to use input user, we will send the user. So now inside this component we will need to use the input, the user of type user, and we can console log it, user. And when this component initializes, it will have the user details. So we can pre-populate the form controls with the user data, user type. And let's make the other one too. The patch user form type void is the same as the one before group, and we will change only the, we will need to import the user service also using dependency injection. Okay, public, and now we will need to patch user form, and we will have only the name, patch user form, and the update user form. In form group, and it will be the same. Okay, let's see what error we have. Oh, we need to call the functions init user form and init patch user form. Okay. Inside SCSS, if we use host, everything that is nested inside host will be only for this component. So for example, if we want to style a component like math form field, the divs we don't see inside HTML, in our HTML, but we can change them from inside SCSS with ngDiv, and the class name, for example, math form field in fix. And if you don't use it inside host, we risk of changing inside the whole application and create bugs. So I recommend use host all the time. Okay, let's make some styles. Create user, update user, update user, date name. Okay, now we have the input populated: user1, normal user, ID. So we'll need to make the put and the patch method. Okay, so we have public update user of type void. We're gonna console log the update user value, user form dot value. So let's use this here. Update user. So okay, this one works. And we need to put the ID. So we have user equals to this update form, update user form dot value. We mutate user equals to this dot user ID, the ID we sent from input, we received from input. And after that, this dot user service, we need to update the user, get the response, we need to console log it. But now we need to use the get users from the parent component from here. So the only way we can do this is to actually use an output from inside the update user component, so we can call the get users from the parent from inside here. So how do we do that? We will need to use an output, so we will call the get users from the parent component. So to be public refresh, new event emitter core, and after we update the user, we will emit a boolean to the parent component. So inside the parent component, we will need to call it will be like an event refresh this this refresh output. It will have the same name here, and we will need to make another function in users and say refresh users, which will get that boolean we sent from emit. So we'll console log this event, and we will use refresh users, and the actual value it's in $event. So the event emitter name here, and the function we will create inside the parent component, and the event will be a boolean, type boolean. So now each time we will update user 12, for example, we will get the event true here. So we can call get users. So now if we update, for example, updated user, and it will be an admin, update user, and it will be an admin. It refreshed the user list. Okay, and now for the patch. Click update patch user of type void equals to this patch user form, which we used, patch user form value. We'll mutate the user ID, this.user ID, from the one we get from the input, and we will use this dot user service full patch, and inside the patch we have the ID and the user. We need to send the ID and the user, so user.id and the user. We subscribe and we emit again, so we can refresh the users. Patch user, let's see if in HTML it's okay. Patch user, and we have only one. We can update any value. For example, we choose to update only the name. We can choose to update only the user type if we want. For now we update only the name. Okay, so now patched user, and now it's refreshed, and if you see in the network, patch and user get, we can style the components. For example, on the update user, let's hide them. Update, show update date form user, and let's create this function of type void. It will get user as a parameter. We send it from HTML, and we will need to mutate it. Let's see the user model, show update user. So we will mutate user dot show update user equals to not user show update user. So we will toggle the value show update user, and now we will take the boolean, and we will use ngIf directive to actually hide if it's false. Okay, now let's see user button. User. Let's actually over 0.5. So now let's see what went wrong. Update user. Show update form. User show update user. User dot show update user. We had the property on the user. So now we can toggle it and update user. So let's if user show update user, let's put the string update user, actually cancel user, cancel. If it's false, update user. If it's true, we'll show cancel. Let's see. Show update. Okay. And now it toggles cancel update user. So we have the create new user, normal user. We create and get users. We select them. We use put, and now if we refresh, each user is selected. Again, refresh. We can delete the user. We can update on the form. User to 3, super admin. We can patch the name value. Patch user. So that would be it for the video. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please address them in the comment. And don't forget to subscribe.